1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everybody, sitting here today with the wonderful Hugh Burns at the Ullapool Guitar Festival. Welcome, Hugh.
Thank you very much. Lovely to see you. Thank you for inviting me.
I'll just start off by telling you what I told you a minute ago about when I first walked in the door in 2019.
Okay.
To my first Ullapool Guitar Festival. And you were the first person I met. You were sitting through at the ticket desk, just sitting there looking chilled. And I came up and felt a little bit nervous because I'd never been before, and you put me at my ease and you made me feel very welcome and very comfortable.
That's very nice.
My thanks for that. And as I walked around the festival, got to know people, I just got to know what an amazing, friendly, warm place this really is.
Yeah, it's very special. It's a very special. I've played at a lot of festivals and I've done a lot of touring, and this has definitely a special quality to it. So all credit, to Richard Lindsay and to all the people, the team of people that put it together. There's too many to mention all the names, but they do a wonderful, wonderful job and have done. And they embrace many different types of music. Of course, it originally started as a kind of a folk and acoustic, and it still has a very strong element of that. But it's basically guitar based in a nutshell. It is the guitar festival. And I've certainly never been to a better one.
Well, it strikes me that everybody who comes and the professionals who meet here feel like it's a kind of homecoming in some way.
That's right, yeah. There's something very mystic about it.
Yeah.
My first experience of playing in the Ferryboat Inn, the first year I came, which is on the front and looks out onto Loch Broom. I was looking out I just took my guitar and sat down. There was no amplifiers, we just played acoustically. And I looked out at Loch Broom, and I hadn't planned what I was going to play. And I immediately started playing, an old Scottish air, a ballad, just because of the environment. And it got me reinterested in that music again, because, when I was young, people used to sit in a circle and sing songs. And I learned a lot of music through listening to people singing songs. And for some reason, that environment really inspired me. And strangely enough, this year, during the lockdown, I've gone back and actually recorded a number of Scottish and Irish traditional style songs, and I've added some original material in that genre. And that's all thanks to Ullapool.
Nice.
So that's going to be called Song of the Isles. Okay. That's the title of that particular project. So that's thanks entirely to the Ferryboat Inn and the festival, the Ullapool Festival, bringing those memories back into my mind.
And how far back does that go for you?
Well, when I was very young, when I was 4 or 5, people would meet in the house and sing songs.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that very often, back then, in that context, people had their own song. So a certain uncle would always sing his song. Nobody else could sing that one. But it was mostly Scottish type material. Classic songs.
So Ullapool Festival's kind of brought that back for you?
It certainly has, yeah.
That's really
very
nice
much
to
so.
hear. Yeah. So tell us a bit about the Song of the Isles, the project.
Well, as I say, over the years, Richard has introduced me to a few other people. There was a Dundee Guitar Festival, which was a classical guitar festival, and then they organised at one point an Inverness one. And through that and through those connections, on several occasions I was commissioned to write music for the festivals, for the various festivals. I wrote one for Dundee. That was a classical festival, and I was asked by Alan Neve, who ran that. He's the professor of classical guitar in Glasgow at the moment. So I wrote in the form of a guitar quartet, but the quartet could be expanded. It could be 8 people. You know, you could have 2 people playing each part, etc., etc. And that was performed at that particular. It's called the East-West Suite, and that's recently been re-recorded by a group called Sequence, which is a Scottish group, but they play it on electric guitars.
Okay.
And that's up on Bandcamp. It's a very interesting piece of music, and the guys have done a wonderful job on it.
Yeah, we'll put a link to that in the
Please do.
podcast.
They've done a great job. Adam Bully's involved in that, and Malcolm McFarlane, I think, was the founder. And then for the one of the previous Ullapool festivals, I was asked to write a piece of music to do with Isle Martin. And so I wrote a piece of music for 3 guitarists, myself and 2 other guitarists, so I knew they're playing very well, and they're both wonderful players. Eric Roach was one of them, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and he was a specialist in dadgad tuning. Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting challenge to try and write something that he would play, if you see what I mean. And Clive Carroll, who's arguably one of the best players anywhere, he was the other guitarist, and we performed that for 3 guitars. But during this period, I've taken a fresh look at it and added other instruments to it. For example, fiddle, accordion, bit of percussion, mandolin, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's called the Isle Martin Suite. So it's a series of small pieces which kind of tell, when the story was explained to me about how somebody, whether this is true or not, we don't know, somebody came, by boat from Ireland and was sailing up the west coast and looking for where he wanted to, I guess he had some kind of religious connections. So that was the thing I tried to capture, the mood. Mm. So I was, in terms of the small pieces, I was trying to think of the idea of them getting on the boat and leaving, and then the journey itself, and then the view when they actually, something came to light that they wanted to settle on, etc., etc.
And has that been recorded?
Yes, it's all been recorded. It's not that the Guitar Stories has been recorded and mastered. The Song of the Isles has been recorded but not mastered.
Right.
That's so what will happen? It probably will come out first on some kind of the streaming type, situation. It might be Bandcamp or one of those.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably bring out. The reason I would bring out either a CD or actually an album. I know people don't like CDs anymore, but the reason I would do that is because of the backstory. So in the case of Guitar Stories, the story behind that is that over the years I've recorded a number of tunes with different instruments that I've owned, or still, in some cases, still own. And I'd had some of those recordings. And so I wanted to, in a sense, musically tell the story of those guitars. Yeah. Because they've each got their own unique character. That's a different kind of record entirely.
Well, you don't need to tell me that guitars have their own character. I know that only too well.
So that's the background to it.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I think Tony McManus recorded an album that was each tune recorded on a different guitar.
Oh right, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And
yes, he's a wonder. He's arguably he's the best Celtic guitarist, if you can use that term.
Yeah.
That's his specialty, and I've had the good fortune to meet him and play with him. And John Goldie and I played with him at I think the Dundee Festival.
Okay.
And I met him up here as well and with Clive Carroll we went up to Acoustic, and we did a workshop with the kids during the day in the school, and then we went to I think it was the village hall, and played a concert in the evening, and I loved his playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's living in America now. Canada.
He's in Canada, yeah. He was over touring in the summer.
Unique player.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that he's kept that legacy. I'm a different kind of guitarist in that I didn't set out to be a solo guitarist, and I didn't set out to tour in that way. I basically, the main thrust of my work has been in the studio. I've done a lot of tours, and I've toured, wonderful, wonderful places, and worked with many musicians. But primarily, I think of myself as a studio guitar player who does the odd gig.
Yeah.
That's my perception of it. But this stuff that's been coming out recently, in some ways, that's in response to what's been happening in the world.
Yeah.
Because I thought to myself, I've been at this such a long time. If I've got anything that I want to get out of my system, I better do it now.
Right.
Simple as that. Each day is precious. Each day is unique. We have to do our best. I have to do my best, and I hope other people feel the same way.
Well, it comes across. I mean, as you know, I sat in a workshop with you yesterday, with you and John Goldie, and it was wonderful just listening to some of your wisdom about playing with other people and how important that is, and about how music is something that feeds the soul. And
definitely. Music, the arts generally are important, and I mean that in a very broad sense. Not just, art can be applied to many things. Gardening, cooking, or whatever. It's people's connection with the world, and music certainly has the power to. There's no mystery why we sing in churches or why they play music at weddings and funerals. It has a special function, and it can have a very, very positive effect on people. I've done over the years a number of albums for a company called Bridge Recordings, which they call it relaxation. So if people are meditating or doing yoga, or they can use those kind of albums. And in fact, some tracks on the Guitar Stories one are a little bit like that. They're very meditative. So there's also a couple of classical pieces on there, but not played on the classical guitar. Okay. That's what makes them interesting.
Yeah.
The piece by Villa-Lobos, but played pick style rather than finger style. Just, I did it as a challenge, but it seemed to be quite interesting, and it's something I haven't heard too many people do. So I tried it.
And you've been doing some work on some Jerry Rafferty material.
Well, I played on quite a number of Jerry's albums, I think about 5 in all, and last year would have been the 10th anniversary of his passing, and I was contacted by his daughter who looks after, Martha, who looks after, the estate, and they were having some of his old tapes, magnetic tapes, digitized. They have to do that because the tapes deteriorate over time. And they discovered some unreleased tracks. Some of them were almost finished, and they also discovered some other material on his computers that he'd been recording on that were works in progress.
Yeah.
So she decided to try and prepare an album, which in fact came out in roughly about September of last year, 2021. Okay. He got nice reviews, and it's a lovely, lovely album. Because one of the things he does, he goes back to his roots. A lot of people don't know, but Jerry was a very, very good acoustic guitar player. It's important to state that. He played, he could sit down in the studio and play you the song top to bottom, and it already sounded great, with nothing on it. Because he had started in, the kind of folk style.
Yeah.
And he's done a few of those on the new album. And they're definitely worth having a listen to. His voice is beautiful on them.
What's the album called?
Rest in Blue.
Rest in Blue. We'll definitely put a link to that. I look forward to listening to that.
Well, thanks for asking about that.
Yeah. Are you going to be playing some more at the festival this weekend?
I believe this is the last day of the festival,
Yeah.
and I might have one more thing to do.
Excellent.
I tend to be, if there's a gap, or if
Yeah.
somebody collapses, or then I fill in.
Yeah. Well, it's been a real pleasure to sit down with you, Hugh. I appreciate the time. Thank
Well, I wish you lots of success with your podcasts.
Thank you.
And hopefully, maybe in some future time, I'd love to also send you up, as apart from these ones that I've been talking about, one or two of the kind of international, I said maybe a good way to put it, projects I've been working on.
Interesting.
One connected with France and one connected with Brazil, South America.
If you don't sit on your laurels, do you?
There's two quite interesting projects, and I'm happy to send you some of the music. But the French one's already prepared and finished. It'll just give you an idea, a view from another angle.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank
Okay.
you, Hugh.